Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining Friday with Fran. As you can see today, that's not Fran. That is my friend Shae. Shae is a special education teacher. She has been on hashtag No Limits twice because she has such an amazing story of her own life of being someone with ADHD and now being a special education teacher and working with lots of kids who also have that and who have other ability levels all over the place. She is a master IEP coach, which is how I met her. And we're both very excited because pretty soon we get to go to our master IEP coach conference, and we haven't seen each other since last year when we went to the conference. So, and it's usually a very good time, and we'll come back with lots of energy and great ideas of things to do and other ways to help all of our clients. So, Shae, thanks for filling in for Fran today. How are you?
Oh, great. How are you?
I'm good. It's hot here in Southern Illinois. What's it like in Texas?
Oh, it's about 105, 106.
Okay, well, I lied. It's not hot in Illinois. We're not there yet.
Yeah. High humidity, about 90% humidity. So it makes it really hot,
Yeah, that's what we're at. So are you finished with school now for this year?
Yes, we finished in May.
Okay.
We got out a week before everybody else.
Oh.
Since I teach private now, we kind of can set our own days and numbers. And we still have to have the same kind of numbers because of credits, high school credits. But
right.
But we figure it out. However they figure, that's not my job. I just teach. No.
There you go. Keep your head down, do your job, be done, and yeah, there you go. So, I always forget to remind people of this. Let us know if you're watching #live. Give us a comment. I'm not broadcasting to the group today. I'm trying to do a little bit of experimenting and see if anything changes based on where I'm broadcasting, because I feel like some things have changed as far as like the viewership. Since I've been broadcasting into the group. So I am not broadcasting there. So we'll see what happens. So some people may be in the group waiting for me to go live today. I'm not there. So hopefully they've already subscribed if they're watching on YouTube, or liked if they're watching on Facebook, to those places. And so they got the notification anyway. So yeah, make sure that you let us know, you hang out with us, you give us some feedback about what we're talking about. So because Shae and I have so much in common, we're just, gonna kind of be like Fran and I, where we're probably gonna be all over the board as to what we talk about. So, so Shae, you are the first teacher that I've had on that is a special education teacher. I had a general education teacher on No Limits earlier this week, but tell me what the school year was like this past year.
Well, since I teach private school, it's a little bit different because, but we wore a mask every day, because I was listening to one of your Friday was with Fran and talking about how wearing a mask and you kind of forget about it. It's still the same thing on the flip side, because the first thing, like in my mind still, before I get on my truck, I grab my mask. Mm-hmm. And now it's not like a mandatory thing around here. But it's kind of funny. It's just kind of ingrained in your brain. But, I just got used to it. And I just kind of did it, not even really, thinking about it. So
right.
I looked at my pictures, that's just a side tip or whatever. But I took pictures when I first started wearing masks teaching, because I've been teaching 25 years, and who in the world would ever think you'd wear a mask of teaching? That's
right,
kind of weird,
exactly.
Kind of strange, whatever. But I started taking pictures every day from March all the way till March, until now, me wearing a mask every day teaching in. And so it's kind of interesting to see the changes of the mask and how you kind of look every day. It's kind of funny. It's just like, how more relaxed you get and kind of more, So yeah. It was, and because I had my favorite mask was this terrible. It's a elf on the shelf mask. So it was very Christmassy, and I would be wearing it like I wore it in May because I loved it. It was amazing. It was like it was silk on the outside and really soft cotton on the inside, and it wasn't a hot mask. And so I was taking them in May, just I saw it the other day. I was like, oh, maybe I need to wear that. And people would, at least that would be funny because, at least they're paying attention to what I'm wearing, the least my students are looking at me because a lot of times I could wear it and upside down or anything. And they still wouldn't decide to, to figure out what I was wearing. Sometimes I had fun with them just, but yeah, I always like, now I'm kind of like thinking, oh no, I can't wear a mask anymore. What am I going to have them look at my face with? So,
well, and I'm just thinking, like I know some people, they say, you smile with your eyes, but not everybody always smiles with their eyes. So if you're walking in and you've got this elf on the shelf mask on in May and somebody smiles at you under their mask, you can't tell that they're smiling or, if you're getting a reaction anyway.
They're probably thinking, does she know what she's got on? Yeah, one day I forgot a mask at, it was, a Disney one, and it had puppies on it, all the different dogs from Disney or whatever on it, and you could wear it straight. But one day I decided to turn it upside down just to see how long it would take. And it was 2:00 in the afternoon before my students said, "Hey, Miss Spears, do you know you have your mask upside down?" And I said, "Yeah, I put it like that at 8:00 this morning."
Oh my gosh.
I know. And I'm pretty close into my kid's face, but they're, with special needs, all of them. And, that gives you a test that they really don't like looking at your face, or especially your eyes, like, look at my eyes. Well, guess what? They don't like to look at your eyes. So that it was kind of funny. I was just like, oh yeah. And then when my students finally said, well, I noticed it, but I didn't want to say anything.
Like, great, thanks.
Thanks. You just let me, I was like, yeah, gee, thanks. You let me walk around all day with my mask upside down. That hurts my feelings. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. But it was funny. So I guess from, they kind of paid attention more, I don't know. So.
Yeah. And that's one of those, honestly, that was a good skill lesson because, it is a social skill lesson. Like,
very.
Hey, it might be awkward to say something to somebody if they're wearing two different shoes, or if their clothing is on backwards or inside out, or they've got something in their teeth,
or even their pants or zippers undone. That's I have to do that all the time to my students. I'm like, I have a few of them. I'm like, you might want to check down there. And they're like, oh yeah, and it's embarrassing. They're in high school, so you're kind of like. Because I was working with a parent yesterday, but if they're 18, because that's what I work with now, but really immaturity wise, he's like a fourth grader, and the social skills and what he's doing is really fourth grade, third, fourth grade, and but he's pretty presentable. But some of our kids, that are in high school, they still have those childlike behaviors, I guess. So she's like, yeah, I've never really thought about that. So she's like, I got to remember. And, I think that's another thing I'll go back to the other question but I think parents, and I guess teachers too, but as parents, you would, you see your child as a 18-year-old, like she was talking about.
Right.
And I have to kind of remind my parents that developmentally, their age is 18, but we got to figure out where really they're functioning on. And that's a hard thing, when they are talking about, like I was talking to her about doing a book talk because we were working on him with comprehension and how important that is to even go all the way back, when we used to teach, do book talks and read alouds and that stuff, those kids that with autism or any disability, most teachers will be like, okay, they're understanding, they're shaking their head. And they don't know. They really, teachers just take it like, oh, yeah, they know what they're doing. And really, in reality, they might just be shaking their head, you know. So
right,
she's
somewhere along the line, they've picked up that if I nod my head, that's a way to show that I'm involved in. So, you know, I've learned that social skill of that, but
what does that mean? Yeah.
Right.
And so I thought I learned a lot talking to her yesterday. He's a new life coaching kid since I do life coaching. And when they get to a certain age, I don't tutor anymore. I mean, she wanted me as a tutor, but I've kind of explained it to her that I would be his life coach, not his tutor. I said, that just sounds different. I don't know what that makes it different. But so going back to the question you asked about what was different this year, I think the math was the difference. And for my school, our kids not being like our school, we had 3 classrooms and they were all separated and they stayed in their own classroom all day long. And the teachers moved. And looking at it, they built a bond in that one class. But our school is built, and their mission of it is to integrate everybody to have friends, you know, because a lot of times our kids don't have friends, or they don't get to go to birthday parties and, you know, all that stuff. And that was one of the premises for our school, is for our students to have friendships. And you can tell that it didn't happen this year because, I mean, we would put them at the end of the year at recess time or brain break. We call it brain break, not recess, high school kids, you know.
Right.
But you can kind of tell some of them would interact, but not like we've always had it, because they were integrated. Yeah. And so that was a big takeaway. And also I think with us, we do a lot of ability grouping. Mm-hmm. And this year it was not really like that. It was like kind of set up in their bubbles, and you could interact, you know, like if I'm teaching reading, I was teaching reading to 6 different levels.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and then in the years past, it would be teaching reading to like 3 levels, because we would kind of group them together. Right. And that made it hard on, you know, as teachers, it was hard on the teachers, because like the math teacher, she teaches teaches math and algebra 2 or geometry or whatever. And usually we kind of ability group them, but she was teaching algebra 1, algebra 2, and geometry all at the same time. Oh my gosh. Was, you know, and it's so overwhelming because we didn't really do, you know, because they go in and out, you know, like in a regular high school, they have a geometry class and they have an algebra class. But for us, being a small school, it was no integration. It was all free for all. That's what we felt like all the time. What are we teaching today? Because like for me teaching English, I was teaching language arts as a 5th grader. And then I was teaching English 4. So that's a humongous span in a day.
Wow.
I know. I was like so awesome. And then I'm so ADHD. And it's kind of funny because we had a schedule in my schedule, and this is so important. Like there was a schedule in my room that was posted and somebody erased it. Oh my gosh. And I never really thought I needed a schedule so much. When somebody erased it, I was so lost. I mean, I had to type me one up, but it was, and also it was written on the chalkboard and it was in big font. So all I had to do was glance over there and make sure I stay on time and know where, you know. But when they erased it, I was like, oh my gracious. And then I thought, you know, that kind of made me reflect of how important it's for kids to have a schedule. Yeah. You know, just that reassurance, you know, and I was mad. I was like, I was telling people about not having a schedule and stuff. And they're like, well, just type you one, you know, but it wasn't the same because I was still looking that motor memory of looking over there at the chalkboard to see what the schedule was. So, and I even had it on my phone, but it was still that, you know, people say, well, I have it on my phone or I have it, blah, blah, blah. But once you learn how it's at one spot, it's so important, you know, that just, So I would be lost. I wouldn't have a clue. I'd go, I'd be like, where am I supposed to be? And I'd go in one of the like, it's not your time, Miss Spears. And I'm like, okay. And then I'd go to what class I was supposed to, the students knew. Yeah. I was so, out of it half the time. But yeah.
But that's such a good point that, you talked about muscle memory. And I remember when I was teaching full time and it would come time to state testing and they would make us take everything down that had formulas on it or might in some way give a hint to the students of, how to write something or whatever. But the students that had become accustomed to using those, I mean, not everybody did, but those that were used to it, you would still see them look up where that poster was. And because of that muscle memory, there was a bit of a remnant too. And so oftentimes it would be like they were, okay, if I look up here, like my brain goes, oh yeah, this was what was in that spot. So this is what I have to do. Mm-hmm. And for our kids that have the separate location for testing, we found out that we were actually doing them detriment because we were taking them out of where they had learned all that and they couldn't have that memory because it wasn't hanging in the place where they were taking the test. They hadn't learned the material in that space. Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of one of those like, an aha.
Like, oh yeah. And talking about the motor memory, I worked with my students this year with typing because there's two awesome websites and they're both free. There's a Nitro Type and a typing.com and both of them are free for people. And I did
writing that down because my husband is actually teaching a business typing class in the fall. So Nitro Type.
And typing.com. Okay. And typing.com is more like what he would probably use. Okay. But Nitro is fun. It's all in games and stuff, but it's a lot of fun. Uh-huh. And I played the Nitro type because I think it's fun. As an adult, I like it because I'm a good typist. But, teaching motor memory, and that's what typing is a motor memory. And that's why I try to teach my kids, like, don't peck. And that's all they ever do, because of texting or whatever. And I would have to kind of, keep telling them they've got to build that motor memory. And I had 3 students that would, all 3 of them were with autism. I mean, different levels. And all 3 of them, like, went to an advanced level.
Oh, wow.
I know. And I was like, see, that's what... I'm always trying to research and prove things and stuff. But, but I was like, hey, that's pretty cool, And I had one kid with intellectual disabilities, and he did really well too. So I was like, there's something with that that builds that motor memory.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up that. How kids want to hunt and peck when they're typing because of the texting that they're so used to doing. It is very time consuming to break that habit when you're actually teaching keyboarding. I can remember, and this was even before really texting was a big thing. I was in a classroom and it was a smart board, but I think now they call them more like there's more Promethean boards or Prometheum boards or the more common known name. And so whatever I was typing on the computer, the kids could watch, whatever I was typing. And I was looking at the students. So I was looking off to my right. The words were coming up on the left and my keyboard was right in front of me. And I could type and talk at the same time. And I was pretty accurate. And these kids were like, how are you doing that? And it's like, because my brain, like you said, it's that muscle memory. So that they were at a young age. And like I said, this was even before texting. And so fast forward like 20 years and I've been subbing and I have a friend who was teaching typing in the junior high. And those kids are like, this is so stupid. Why do I have to hit J 27 times with my, my right index finger? And it's like, because you have to teach your, and so I kind of did the same thing. I'm like, I put, a blank screen up and I was like, okay, now tell me something to type. And I wasn't looking at the keyboard. I wasn't looking at the screen. And then I would start typing and they were just as amazed as those kids were 20 years ago. They're like, how do you do that? You're not looking at the keyboard. How do you know where the letters and everything are? And I'm like,
because I typed it over and over on the books.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when I took typing in high school, we were still on typewriters. Word processors were just starting to come out. I think we had one word processor in our typing room, and every other device was an actual typewriter. So if you made a mistake, you had to use the whiteout, or you had to.
That's how I started. That's how I started when I started special ed. Doing those. Typing my IEPs, that's how I first started, like with a typewriter,
Yeah.
Even way back then.
That gives me chills because I
know, me too. Remember the typical, like we had 3 copies of it.
Yes.
Like you had to, like 3, and you had to like line up on that line and.
Yeah. Thankfully, when I started full-time teaching, we were allowed to write, so I didn't have to do too much typing on triplicate, but there were a few that I had to type things out. And I almost hunted and pecked on purpose, because then I was less likely to make a mistake.
I know, me too. And then they came out with special ed, another thing, always something that you couldn't use whiteout.
Right.
It was always something. It was just a hot mess.
This became, can you see what this is?
Uh-huh.
Do you know what this is? This became my favorite, invention however many years ago, because, when you're writing out IEPs and you've written, a whole sentence, and then you talk to the team and they decide, no, we want to change that wording on that sentence. All right, here we go. Write it all out. Start all over again.
Yeah, I know. And with a computer, so much different, So I guess thinking about those are the things, like what was different for me, because I was in private school. But as a parent with kids in the public school, I think like the connection from teacher to parent, and students, like I think the teachers, my boys' teachers, the majority of them, lost that connection with them.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how you wouldn't at least lose some of it.
Yeah, and they, and I think the kids and not to say like for special ed side, but I just have an example, because and I've never really thought about this, Shelley, because I've always been special ed side, and never on the other side where they're gifted and are very intelligent,
Right.
And so, like if you have kids that are special ed and say in high school, and you really work hard as the teacher to get them to a 70, or here is a 70 to pass, because we have no D's in Texas. And so anything below a 70 is failing. So we work really hard to help kids get to that 70 passing. But then as a parent, and my child is high school, and he doesn't pass U.S. history, but he can pass all the tests. But then he doesn't do the projects, and so then he fails. And I'm like, we're always told as for special ed to differential instruction.
Right.
And that's all we do. That's everything. But then you flip side it, and I've never thought about that. On the flip side, they don't really differential for the higher kids. And I think, and I also thought about, like we have kids that are twice exceptional kids. If they're not differential instructions for the higher kids, those kids with those twice exceptionals are not getting differential either.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I've never really thought about that until my child didn't pass his class. Then he'll have to retake it in the summer. But I was like, that was just a humongous aha for me, because I didn't see it as a general, as the general side of it. But because I've had several kids that are not where I'm at. Well, twice exceptional. I've had several kids that were, they might have a learning disability, but very extremely high in math,
Right.
and or history or whatever. But, they might have an IEP for one thing and not for, for something else for sure. And then I thought, I wonder if those kids, are getting any help, for the things that they're really,
Right. So in Illinois, in order to be considered twice exceptional, you do have to have a huge difference. So you have to have like a gifted IQ in something, and our gifted level is an IQ of 120 or higher.
120 usually, yeah.
And and then so maybe like you said, you're gifted in math, but maybe you have a specific learning disability in reading. And so that's our kind of definition of twice exceptional. Is that the same in Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same.
And I'm curious because in most of the districts where I've worked, and I mean, I'm in a small rural area, so I'm not saying that this is all across the state by any stretch of the imagination. We didn't really have gifted programs. And if we did, there was 1 or 2 years where one of the teachers that I worked with had gotten some extra training in gifted programming. But in Texas, does the gifted program fall under the special education umbrella?
No, it doesn't.
Not at all. Okay. Because I think
it's on its own identity or own track, I guess.
Yeah. Because technically that would be special education. If you really think about it, if it's really done properly,
it would be, yeah.
It's different curriculum and you've modified and you've adapted. And so I don't know that.
I don't know a lot about it, but I just have had kids with it, and I took care of the special ed side of it. But then they would go to GT class for whatever. And I've only had a few of those, so it's not. I guess not. I'm not saying normal, but it's hard to come across a lot of times. But there are kids out there, but that just kind of made me think, with my kid, my student, my own student, being ADHD, and I've just never have had him to have a 504 or anything, know, but now I'm thinking, well, did I do, but he's a senior now. So I'm like, I'm not going to do a 504 for his last year. So,
but you might want to, so he would have something in place before he goes to college.
Oh,
if he's going to college.
No, he wants to be a welder.
Oh, well, doesn't he have to get any? Does he have to get any sort of certificates, or can he just start?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of different when you don't go like to college. You go to trade school or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Well, hopefully, if he needs something, they would still be willing to help him. And
oh yeah, they usually do for that. Yeah. So I guess that's a big difference from like for this school year. I know there's tons of stuff, but I know in the special ed side, like just talking to my friends, they had to do like triple stuff, always doing something, trying to jump through hoops all the time. And I remember several of my friends really wanted to, resign or retire or just quit because it was just so hard. And I had one friend that she's like, if the administrators would just come, because they were just barking at them all the time. She's like, they're just barking at me all the time and I can't do anything right. And she's an inclusion special ed teacher. And she's like, if the administration people would just come and see what we're doing, she said it would be so much better. So I think it was just a whole like just trying to get through so many things were falling through the cracks. And
well, yeah, I mean, you that were teaching full time, you almost had to reinvent teaching because nobody had ever faced anything like this. So yeah, like how many kids should be in a classroom at a time, and can you
6 feet apart?
Yeah,
hand sanitizer on the table. Have to keep that open. Have to clean the tables every single day.
Right. Yeah, there was a few times when I subbed, and early in the year when I subbed, you had to wipe down the tables in between. And at the particular school that I subbed in, it was in a special education room where we call it resource here in Illinois, but where the kids would just come in for a little bit of extra help. So in between, times that kids would come in and leave, you'd have to try to wipe down the tables. But the kids were usually pretty good early in the school year about helping me and keeping their masks on and doing all that stuff. But then as the year progressed, I noticed that I'd go in and sub in the same particular classroom, and the hand sanitizer was still on the table, but the kids weren't using it as often, and the masks were down here, and it wasn't as detailed in the lesson plans, make sure you wipe down the table now, and make sure you wipe down the table now, and make sure, and I don't know if it was just that people just got tired of it, or if it was like in that particular school, they'd had a few outbreaks where they'd had whole classes have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. And, so I don't know if they just kind of felt like, well, everybody's finally had it, or, so nobody else can have it because everybody's gotten it already, but yeah. So did you notice that too, that kind of as you
Oh yeah. Because I guess it was so embedded in us at the beginning of the school year. And luckily with my school, we only had like 2 kids that got COVID.
Oh, wow.
So, but it was during Christmas time. So it wasn't even.
Oh, yeah. It didn't really affect your day.
Didn't affect anything. But I think a lot of times, and I think I'm thinking a lot, like kids being absent a lot, because like if they were around somebody that was tested positive, they had to be out 14 days.
Right.
But I remember I got a call from my son's teacher or from the nurse, and I was upset because they found out like on Tuesday, the kid did, and told my son, and the nurse didn't let us know for like 2 days after that. I'm like, he's been sitting there the whole time, and she's like, well, and then parents didn't let the school know,
right?
And then, well, we've already been there, why? And she's like, well, you need to come check your child out and blah, blah, blah. And he used to be out for 14 days. And I'm like, okay, but I could never understand what, but it was
right.
And then you were supposed to, I didn't follow directions here very well, but like do a morning check-in on the district.
Oh,
and like before they went to school every day, where you were supposed to check in that they were okay before. And I'm like, and I didn't ever do it. Like, what a fall through there. But some parents were complaining about that. Why would have to do that? Oh yeah, and we had like my school. That was funny. Yeah, we had to check temperature every single day.
Yeah,
every single day before they walked in. Right at the door, we were checking temperatures.
Yeah,
and like that was new. That was new. And some of my kids would be, I hope I have temperature today. I hope. Sorry, go back to class.
Yeah.
So. But,
yeah, I subbed in a kindergarten classroom the second to last day before school was over. And I didn't realize when I accepted to sub that day that it was the second to last day of school. That was not a good day for me, but that's all right. I survived, and so did the kids.
But it helps you remember why you're not in the classroom anymore, huh?
Well, why I'm not in a kindergarten classroom. That was never a grade that I love that age. They're so fun, but yeah,
it is tough.
It is. Yeah. And by that, in that district, they had, everybody was, I don't think they had any virtual students anymore. But yeah, it was, I had to take the temperature. I had to learn how to use the thermometer because I'd never used that kind before where you just hold it up. Yeah. So before the day was started, I'm running around trying to find other teachers. I don't know how to use this thing. What do I have to do? And, but yeah, so, I mean, they were still taking those precautions, but yeah, they didn't force the kids to keep the masks on anymore, by the end of May. And, and I honestly, I'm trying to remember when I had been there earlier in the year, because I had been in that classroom one other time. I'm trying to think if they had their masks on. I can't remember now. But yeah, I remember talking to one of my teacher friends in like September maybe, and I asked her how things were going. And she also happens to be a kindergarten teacher. And she's like, I'm just exhausted already at this early stage in the year because I could record my lessons, or not record them, but go live with my lessons for the kids who are virtual. But I don't know what some kid is going to say, or, what might happen. And then that's recorded. She said, so I would just go through my whole day and then record for the kids who were virtual. So those kids were always a day behind. And, so like you talked about with like the triple work, she definitely had at least double, because she would go through her whole day of teaching and then, teach again for the recording part of it. And I don't know if she continued that all year. I never asked her the other times that I spoke with her throughout the school year, but my husband was subbing, and he had a situation where the teacher had to be quarantined because somebody in their house had gotten exposed or something. And so the teacher was virtual. Mm-hmm. My husband was there so that there was an adult in person. Yeah. And then the students were there. But I think he said there were still also virtual students too. So, I mean, there was, like all kinds of stuff happening in that classroom.
Yeah. And that's what was going to be like, if a teacher got sick, that's what would have happened with us too. We would have still had to teach being sick.
Right.
And then there would have been a sub in the classroom,
Yeah.
But, if you were really sick, like if you got it and you were sick, I mean, well, right. No, you're not going to teach. But, if you were just not, out for something else. But yeah, it was. And I forgot about that. Yeah. Because we still had kids virtual. So we had one person that was a paraprofessional, and she did virtual with our kids, the ones that were still out. But as a teacher, that was hard because in 2 or 3 different things. But, I'm the teacher and I'm the case person that's supposed to be over grades, and I'm the certified teacher. And to let that go, like not to be in control, I guess, not, just making sure things are taught correctly.
Right.
Was hard. Having somebody else teach your classes, and then, but you have to give the grade. That was hard on me. I mean, I've kind of learned to be a little bit more flexible. I'm pretty flexible, but that was a hard thing. And then also teaching, like what your friend was saying, like we didn't have to record, which was great. But like I would be teaching, and then I would have my screen open to my virtual kids, and then I'd forget about them, or or just or like what, and I'd give them a break or something, and then I'd forget about them, and then been taking 15-20-minute break. Oh, sorry, I'm coming back, and just trying to go back and forth like that was hard, but. Yeah, we got through it, but it was kind of, I'm like, oh, sorry,
Well, I mean, that's like when we were at the conference last year, you know, we had people that attended virtually, and then there were those of us who attended in person. And yeah, I mean, the people that attended virtually, you know, they were saying there was just not the same excitement and feel that those of us in person had.
Yeah, because it's totally different, you know.
Right. You know, and I mean, Catherine, I felt did a great job. I wasn't on the virtual side, but I felt like she did a really good job of including the virtual people as much as possible. But, you know, there, I think, had to be, you know, for her too, because she couldn't be, I think, fully herself either, you know, in either, like, I don't remember which setting it was, but I think she couldn't be fully herself in the virtual setting, but she could.
That was the deal. Yeah, because it's like when you go into a class very bubbly, and I'm very excited and but then I'm doing this, and then I have these other kids. Like, so I was teaching vocational ed. That would be the example there. So I would be teaching skills for them for life, and I'd have to go over here and do the same thing to the virtual kids to make sure they were understanding. And I just really wanted them to just understand and let me keep going, you know, because it was just hard to teach one thing and then, you know, like that.
Yeah.
I felt robotic, like you know, robot kind of, you know, because I would be so excited over here, but then over here I was just making sure they knew what I was saying, because you know, it was hard.
Yeah.
So I can imagine I just had I had 4 kids that were 3 or 4 kids different times being virtual, but you know, classroom teachers having half of their class virtual, you know.
Right. Yeah. So is it in Texas planning? Oh, sorry. Are they planning in Texas to go back full time then in the fall?
Well, right now, this is what I've heard. I mean, my school, yes, but like the public schools, they are having to, I think, write a letter or something and showing. But one of our big school districts around here was denied the other day. I'm figuring a lot of them that thought they were denied of funding. So if there's not funding, you can't do it, you know.
Right.
I mean, I don't know a school that could do it without funding, but a really big school district from here did get denied. So all of them, you know, will have to go back, because, I mean,
right.
That's all I can, you know, think about. But I know our school district at the beginning of the year, we had a survey thing that we had to
I think the heat is affecting
do for if they were coming back or not.
Okay. Yeah, we see. I'm freezing, or if you're freezing, but every so often I'm getting like casting for a second. So I don't know what anybody else is experiencing, but I know there's been a couple times where you've been in the middle of something and then it pauses.
There was
and then it comes back on exactly where you stopped, but your screen had been paused.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. I think it's the heat. I think, you know, because I mean, we're not, I would typically blame it on storms, but we don't have any storms here. I don't know if you're having any there, but it might just be because it's so hot.
No.
Yeah. I don't
know. I know, like, yeah, not the storms. I don't think we have any storms. No, It's all sunny today. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, we might. I mean, I can't see my window from here, so I know there was a chance of I mean, I don't know about in Texas, but in Illinois in the summer we have a chance of rain almost every day, just because of how hot it gets on most days, you know, and it'll just, like, you might have a pop-up thunderstorm sometimes. But so what do you think, or do you maybe already know, like, and we did talk about it a little bit, the mental health aspect of all of this? You know, you talked about the fact that your students weren't able to make friends this year because of how they were isolated in the school setting for safety purposes. So what is your opinion on safety versus mental health?
Well, it's a very fine line there,
I think so too.
That because like for our kids, I mean, like when we were virtual, like not this school year, but the year before, when we were virtual, only virtual, a lot of the kids were like, can we see our friends? Can we see, can we have parties? Can we, and with them having a special needs already, because all my school has learning differences.
Oh, okay.
So we're one of the only ones in our area that has only learning differences for high school. Junior high, we have 5th through 12th grade. But we have several kids with anxiety and depression. And you could see, like, when we were only virtual, how just by their mannerisms and all that were so down, and but in the safety wise, it's kind of a hard thing to say because safety was important, but and I forgot what the outcome with how many suicides were happening because of the isolation. And I just read something the other day, and I can't remember what it was, but it's a pretty high kids from the age of 14 to 18 or 18 to 25, that age group. There's 2 different age groups that they were looking at that had committed suicide just because, not probably just because of COVID, but just everything's so different. And so, I think of one of my students that does have depression, that, the isolation, he has like social anxiety anyway. And then being at home, only virtual interaction, and not, you have to push that with that social anxiety. You have to push them. So going to school is a major thing.
Right.
So not having that outlet, because it was an outlet. School is an outlet. It's major. So like some of our kids really love to go to school, and some of them don't because of social anxiety so high. But they have to go to school so that the safety over the mental health, sometimes I was like, can we just go to a park and stay 6 feet apart,
Right.
And I think, and some of our parents finally last summer did, a few things, and they went fishing, but it was still kind of strange that all of them were like spread out fishing, because you couldn't be so close. So, just the mental toll of all of it's going to be for you.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Years and years. It's not just next year. It's
right.
It's a total, and like therapists and stuff. I read a lot of things or whatever, because I am a life coach, so that's what I work on. Is mental health is one of my strong areas that I get kids from, and I guess they're not kids. Sorry, they're youth. And I know that I tell them they're my kids, and they're like, "Oh, we're not kids anymore. We're youth, or we're teenagers, or whatever." So, but just even the mental health of them, just reaching out. I think everybody kind of got into their own cocoon or whatever and didn't spread out. And so those kids, I think, that kind of gained more, and we were trying to make them spread their wings all the time. And I think the safety part of that, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. It is a very fine line, and I would err more, I think, on keeping the mental health positive than the safety stuff. And maybe that's just because I have had too much experience with negative mental health, either myself personally or loved ones. And I've seen the devastation that from the ripple effect of, someone taking their own life, or someone being an alcoholic, or someone being a drug addict. And, that has, even if the person, if they're an alcoholic or a drug addict and they're still alive, that still can have major repercussions beyond that individual. And I don't know. I was talking to my cousin who's a researcher, and he researches for the CDC, and he was talking about the substance abuse.
Yeah.
The overdoses went up
like triple, I think.
In the previous year, they had been 60,000, and last year they were 90,000. And, so it's like, okay, well, that's 30,000 more. So you can pretty much attribute that to the pandemic isolation.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you start looking at all of those numbers, and, and that's stuff that's, like I said, that's going to be with their people they left behind for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But I also understand, the people lost their lives to the coronavirus, and, those people are now not going to, their loved ones are going to deal with the loss of that loved one. So it's just such a tough thing. I guess, the looking at the facts of schools really didn't transfer the virus that much.
Right.
And so when I look at that information, and then the information of the mental health side and the overdose side and the social anxiety side, the longer you stay away from something that scares you, the harder it is to deal with it. So, if you're talking about those social anxieties and not having to go to school and interact with people, that really could make it worse.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm thinking about, like, the other day we went somewhere and there was a line, and I was like, never mind. I don't want to have to deal with standing in line, and that was never a problem for me before. But my patience level, because now, I mean, we were a pretty impulsive society before, and now, when you can call up and order your groceries and then just go pick them up, or you can call your Target or your Walmart or your, Kroger or Costco, whoever, order and just go pick it up. People are like, okay, well, now I really want it instantly. And I really don't want to have to wait anymore. And I really don't know how to interact. Do you interact with people that you're in line with? Did you interact before? Is it okay now? Can you lessen the distance? Can you, I mean, there's so much social anxiety, not anxiety, but differences now for everybody.
And I was in a group for people with mental illness, and there was a lady, we're talking about her disability, or like talking about different disabilities or whatever, like schizophrenic or, personality disorders, or, there's even social affective disorder, there's different ones, but we were talking about the different ones and the PTSD, and how in those mental illness, society it's a stigma anyway. And then whenever you go to a store, because I don't really go to the store, like a grocery store, and I've noticed that I order it off online because I'm scared of what's, so mine's a lot cheaper, but we were talking about just using cash. If you don't do something over and over and you're just doing a plastic because nobody takes cash, and you get to that point, just thinking about our kids with that struggle with money anyway, and they just have always used a card, but now they can use cash, or they'll,
right.
And then you start freaking out, like what do and we were talking about how we were just talking about situations or whatever, and forgetting, or how much you have overcome to use cash or overcome to get something, and then you haven't done it in so long.
Yeah.
Then you're not doing it again, like.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and like going in I guess, like I ordered, what did I order there? I ordered online the other day, and they were supposed to bring it to the curbside.
Uh-huh.
Well, they didn't come like curbside fast enough for me, I guess. Well, they did. Well, they forgot about me. So, it was at Cheesecake Factory. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they apologized, but but they got busy inside because they're not really doing only curbside now, because that's what they were doing, only curbside for so long.
Right.
Like it just kind of sat there, and we're so sorry, but it's kind of like it's kind of funny because you think about it. You just used to go in the restaurant and get the food and
right,
and leave. But now it's just for us, just think about, and the kids that can't stand change.
Right.
Those are the, it kind of like rocked their world, and then, with children with disabilities, not all kids have mental issues, not at all.
Right.
But, there are some that have the dual diagnosis of a mental illness and a I guess it's called DSM-5 diagnosis or whatever, under emotionally disturbed or whatever. But, with that dual, you think having a learning disability, but then having a mental, I guess that it's kind of like you kind of pull back and you think, wow, but then you think about all the accomplishments,
Absolutely.
of how, just thinking about how, being able to like what we're doing, teaching about life, and doing it virtually, and and it's so, you look at all these different videos and stuff, and how special ed has come out, it's kind of made everything, and I guess a big thing, another kind of makes me kind of laugh, teachers, it kind of makes us laugh, because it always seemed to that it was always the teacher's fault,
Right.
It was always our fault. We never did anything right,
Yep, exactly.
But now the parents have had to teach their kids, had to deal with these behaviors that we've been saying all these years. And now they're like, oh my, kind of like, teachers were not that bad after all, since I've had to do it, Right. And it is. It's kind of like they have appreciated teachers more. I think that's a big aha, because, some people think we just sit and do nothing all day, or babysit or whatever. No, that's not how it is, But I think that's been a huge thing for education and that side of it. And especially our parents with special needs kids, because those kids kind of got left behind, because those parents, a lot of parents were struggling learners themselves, not all the time, but for them to understand. I mean, we're very valuable as a special ed teacher, because we have that special training of how to work with them and stuff.
Yep.
But the parents don't. And so I think that's been a big aha, I just kind of tell people, it's like the school doors have finally opened up, because a school has always kind of been closed, and nobody really knew exactly what went on in a school. You send your kid to school every day, but you have no idea. Only teachers know what is going on every day. But now the school doors have been opened, and people are like, wow, look at it. Why can't he just sit still for 2 minutes? Or 5 minutes or 10 minutes? And you're like, you're just thinking, that's one kid. Just think we have 15 of those, just like that, But
exactly,
a big aha there.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, Shae, our hour is up.
I know. I noticed that. That's wild. We just talk like we're friends.
Exactly. Well, that's because we are.
That's what we need to have it. Friday with friends until Fran comes back.
Yep. But I like Fran. I'll be happy when she's back. But I'm so appreciative of you for stepping up and willing to do this. And I can't wait to see you next month. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.